to our world and your world of green matters. This week, an automotive giant recycling waste into clean green fuel, and new hopes with a new arrival. But first to China, where energy is the burning question. In 1949, the Communist Revolution swept through China. In 1966, its Cultural Revolution began, and by the end of the century, revolution again. This time, an industrial revolution. At breakneck speed, the country has surged ahead to become a major economy and a major polluter. Hand in hand with the country's growth, individual lifestyles have changed also. The government has encouraged people off struggling rural allotments and into the swelling cities. Power usage has leapt, largely fuelled by the pollution heavyweight coal. In 2006, China added 89 gigawatts of coal-generated power to its grid, an amount almost the total of Germany's capacity. The World Bank is encouraging Chinese investment in alternative energies, lending $67 million to finance a 50-turbine wind farm on Pingtan Island. The 100-megawatt farm covers the needs of the island's 400,000 residents and businesses, with an equivalent amount fed back to the mainland grid through an undersea cable.
Our real objective is to try and get a larger range of investors in. The World Bank alone can't finance wind farms, all the wind farms that China wants to install. And we really want to help demonstrate that doing large-scale wind farms in a commercial way, using best practice, is possible. And that's really what Pingtan does.
But China has a battle ahead, as even simple village households are now buying refrigerators, rice cookers and televisions.
China's target for wind is 30 gigawatts by the year 2020. That's quite a substantial task. We now have around about 1.5 gigawatts installed in this country. And so there is a substantial task ahead. Even then, China is going to be heavily reliant on coal.
China's wind production has increased steadily in recent years. The nation is now the 5th highest producer of wind energy, behind Denmark, the United States, Spain and India. Worldwide, wind power offers enormous potential as a renewable energy source. Experts estimate viable wind energy on Earth could be 72 terawatts. That's 72,000 billion watts. In the hills of Chile, students on a school field trip recently made an unexpected discovery. Their biology excursion turned up fossilised remains of whales believed to be 5 million years old. The find included fossilised jawbones, backbones and ribs of 4 whales in an area that geologists say was once part of the seabed.
We went to the place thinking we might find a bone, something small and some invertebrate fossils. But because the kids are restless, they fanned out all over the area and they found lots of fragments close to the surface. It was amazing because I'd never seen a vertebra or a jaw of a whale. So we found it and cleaned it and took it to school. And then our teacher explained to us what bones they were and everything.
Although elephants have often chosen a common area to die, this has not previously been observed with whales. Experts now expect to find more fossils in the area and face the intriguing possibility that this could be a whale cemetery.
I think the spread of the remains is interesting. Because it's not only the amount found in a specific area, but the fact that it is such a large area. What needs to be determined now is how the fossils got here, whether they were washed in on the tide or whether it really is a whale cemetery.
Potentially providing new information about whale behaviour and sea level changes in the past, local authorities are hailing the discovery as one of the most important of its kind in central Chile.
I don't know of any other previous finding. I think it's also justified to emphasise the fact that this was teenagers, not just students, but teenagers that have a particular interest in examining our environment and the things that are our history. I think that's important, and I hope that this initiative will be a drive not only for those in formal education, but for all teenagers.
For the local teenagers, their school field trip proved to be far from boring, discovering a treasure trove of fossils and gaining media attention from around the world. It's also proved to be a fascinating learning experience for the students and will hopefully also give the experts greater insight into whales from the past as well as today. This colourful shop in the heart of London's Notting Hill specialises in handcrafted gold jewellery. Gold is one of the most treasured and beautiful materials on the planet. But, as with diamonds, mining companies often use unethical methods that abuse human rights and the environment.
The diamond issue has become widespread knowledge. I mean, everyone, I think, is now aware of what the Kimberley process means, what blood diamonds are. But the gold question has actually remained quite quiet, and a lot of people are not aware of the terrible, terrible, devastating harm of gold mining. They use cyanide and mercury to clean the gold from the core, the ore that it's found in, and that's then runs off into the rivers and sinks into the soil, sort of incredibly destructive. It's not only harmful for the people working, the miners, but sinks in and will affect everything, kill the fish, etc. So it's a really dangerous, toxic substance.
Pippa has worked with communities in the developing world, mainly South America and Africa. In Panama, she collaborated with the Kuna Indians, resulting in these necklaces and charms, featuring traditional designs of fish, birds and plants.
What I really wanted to do was to work with people and show them that what they do is valuable and is valued in the West and in another market, and that they're paid for the work they do and they should take pride in the work they do. And what I usually do is I sort of research what people worked with traditionally and then work on those designs with them to make them, to sort of just work with them to alter them, to make them more marketable here. And it allows communities to stay together so women can earn and be with the children and not have to migrate to cities and leave families. And so that's the idea, is that community craft can actually, produce a fair income. And so as long as the design is right.
In Bolivia, she bought gold that was panned, a non-destructive process. The premium she paid was invested in community health and education projects.
I don't think really people want to know that they're buying something that is causing harm, or not just to someone but to the land. So I think if people know there's an alternative where they can buy pieces of jewellery that may benefit or may, if not do harm, at least. So I think there's definitely a market for it, absolutely.
Pippa's approach has shown that the most precious metals and stones can be turned into exquisite jewellery in a process that doesn't tarnish but instead enhances their beauty and appeal. In the rolling hill country of Kaskayou, around 100 kilometres south of Nairobi, live some of Kenya's most traditional people. The Akambas live now much as their people have for centuries, but concerns about their environment have them re-evaluating and changing their way of life. Where once they would have been pounding maize in their mortars, the women are now preparing a mash of water and leaves. They are recycling natural minerals, which they would have once thrown away, to make briquettes for burning. It's easy, free, and it's their way of saying no to the destruction of their environment.
I think I will stop using firewood because about 5 years to come there will be no more tree. So I'll be using briquettes only.
In Kenya, wood and charcoal provide up to 75% of energy consumed, sourced by felling large tracts of forest. Only 25 years ago, these same hills looked like this.
If you look at Kenya, forests here cover less than 3% of the total land area. Now, it is known that in a country where forests cover 10% of the country, it's environmentally stable. So we agree that what we have should be managed rather than cut.
To curb deforestation, the government banned felling indigenous trees and therefore the making of charcoal. But this has had little effect. Rural women walk long distances to collect fuel. Every day a little further as the wood gets scarcer. The men take care of the charcoal making, helping make ends meet. Without adequate electricity, there is a big market for charcoal, particularly in the towns where wood is not available. Despite efforts by local officers, it's difficult to enforce the law in these areas.
The boys made it flat, and put down the tracks, all the branches, they covered with the grass, then later on they covered with the soil, and mostly they make an opening on the other side where they light it so that fire can go through. They just hide themselves and do it illegally. So whenever we get all of them, they are taken to the office and they're given a sort of punishment to plant some more trees in the area.
Increasingly, necessity is the mother of intervention.
We do not allow for charcoal to be produced in the forest reserves, the protected forest state land. But again, we have to be realistic that people are having to use charcoal.
There is, however, a growing awareness, particularly among rural people, of what is happening to their environment. This has led to some changes. A few years ago, these Akamban women began using this simple system. The wooden press is the only investment which can be shared by an entire community. Mango and papaya leaves, as well as maize husks, work well, but any plant will do. After that, it just needs a healthy dose of woman power. The sun-dried briquettes light easily and burn for up to 45 minutes, generating more than enough heat for cooking and heating. Maria Mombua is spreading the word, welcoming women and school children from around the region.
I feel very bad when I see people cutting trees, because when trees cut down, no more tree, and our land will be dry, erosion will take place. So I will be very happy when many of them will understand me what I'm teaching them.
I just pick a group like the one of Chair Lady Mary. I will take that group around to the whole location, teaching people how to use these briquettes and how to make them, so that whenever I stop all cutting of trees, the people will not blame me and say that they have nothing to use.
Potentially, the fast-spreading water hyacinth that chokes much of Africa's waterways could be put to good use, making briquettes.
The key is that our briquettes must appear alongside charcoal and sell for less. We know that they do the same work, where you can cook food just as well. It doesn't impart a taste to food.
I like the briquette to be everywhere in Kenya, because now when it be everywhere in Kenya, we are going to save all the trees, and we'll be having a lot of water, and it will cover the country, will be looking beautiful.
It's not hard to imagine a better world. It just takes a little effort to make it happen. At the David Tang Tiger Breeding Centre in South Africa, this tiger may not look particularly excited, but certainly humans are. A rare South China tiger cub was recently born here, fit and healthy. The charity Save China's Tigers established the centre in South Africa on a 330 square kilometre reserve. Zoo tigers are rewilded here, where their hunting instinct is awakened, with plenty of prey for the 4 adult tigers in the program. The birth of just this cub increases the fragile population by over 1%, with only 30 remaining in the wild and around 60 in zoos.
The birth of this tiny little cub is not only the first born into the South China Tiger Rewilding and Reintroduction Project, it is also the first time born outside of China, and therefore he's very precious to us.
In a century, 3 of the 8 tiger subspecies have become extinct. The South China tiger is close to becoming the 4th. Its numbers have diminished from around 4,000 in the 1950s to less than 100 today, driven down by loss of habitat and persistent poaching for medicines.
The goal of the South China Tiger Rewilding and Reintroduction Project is really to resurrect the South China tiger from extinction. Some organizations have actually declared the South China tiger functionally extinct. However, there are still some individuals left.
A sudden cold snap soon after the cub's birth raised fears for its survival, so he's being hand-reared inside. The cub will shortly be reunited with his parents, Cathay and Tiger Woods, and human contact will be kept to a minimum. In the future, the plan is to establish a reserve in China for the rewilded tigers to return home and continue breeding in their native habitat. Hopefully, they can be pulled back from the brink. The words green and Hummer aren't usually heard together, unless you're talking paint colour. But General Motors converted this Hummer H2 to run on hydrogen fuel. Californian Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger used it at the opening of a new fueling station, another addition to California's hydrogen highway.
We will not just dream about the hydrogen highway. We will not just dream about the hydrogen fueling stations. We will not just dream about the hydrogen cars. We will build it.
The Governor and many others believe hydrogen cars with 0 emissions are the way of the future. General Motors has been a strong proponent of reducing dependence on oil, actively working with alternative vehicle fuels. The Hummer is an integral part of that research.
We believe the ultimate solution is hydrogen, but that's a fuel that there's no experience in. How do you handle hydrogen? How do you transport it? Or do you create it on the spot? And experiments such as this one, where we actually get to, in everyday practice, get to work with hydrogen as a fuel, it just advances the state of our knowledge.
GM and other companies are developing hydrogen fuel cell products that could in future power not just cars, but even whole buildings. Another fuel supported by GM is E85, a blend of 85% ethanol and 15% gasoline. Globally, 3.5 million GM flex fuel models can run on gasoline or E85. Recently, GM formed a partnership with biotech company Coscata Inc. Using proprietary microorganisms and bioreactor designs, Coscata can produce ethanol almost anywhere in the world. The ethanol process reduces emissions by up to 84%, uses comparatively little water, and can generate 7.7 times the amount of energy it uses, a return almost 6 times greater than corn ethanol. It uses virtually any carbon-based feedstock, including biomass, municipal waste, petroleum-based plastics, and even shredded car tyres.
People are always surprised when you say garbage, even municipal sewage can be turned into cellulosic ethanol or fuels. It's surprising, but it is true, and it can be done, and the chemistry and technology is not that hard.
One of several interesting aspects of their process is this flexibility on kind of what goes in before the ethanol comes out, and the idea of using used tires. I mean, geez, there are mounds of used tires all over the place, including in a lot of people's garages. And so if you think about that, regular municipal waste, I mean, that's a whole new world, and it is the kind of breakthrough eventually that we need, not just in this country, but around the globe if we want to keep economic growth going, which usually accompanies some greater energy usage.
With this process, each tonne of waste on average converts into 100 gallons of ethanol. Just 3 tyres will produce about 5 gallons. In the US alone, more than 1 billion tonnes of biomass could be converted into fuel annually. And all this at half the price of producing gasoline.
If we can get the supply, the distribution, we need to get more refueling stations out there. We're woefully behind the curve there. We can provide a lot of product, and it has the chance to have a big impact on oil, the growth in oil usage, and particularly oil imports in this country. So it makes a lot of sense. We feel good about the bet, and we're going to stick with it.
With the world's largest automotive manufacturer on board, this sounds like great news for the environment. Join us again when we bring you more of what matters to keep our world green.